And we've had an absolutely unbelievable opportunity. We have a high school club that have called themselves the Dementia Awareness Club. The president of the club is a daughter of two physicians here in our community. Mm-hmm. And when she started this in January, she has 40 students. And so we are able to mentor them. We are going to get them involved and be mentored by programs that we're going to have them go to. But the intergenerational is a missing part that a lot of our professionals are not looking at, and even our families, and keeping them away.
And a requirement to be a member of this group is they will go through PAC training.
Nice.
We have got that scheduled now. We're going to do 2 one-hour sessions that will include all of the fundamentals plus role play in learning hand under hand.
Yay!
So we're super, super excited about being able to mentor some young, and it scares the living heck out of me, but I'm learning from them what they need. So it's kind of helping me with my listening skills because, Chifa, one of the questions that we hear a lot, and you do too, is if I changed my diet, if I didn't eat metals, if I didn't cook with Teflon, would it have made a difference? Significantly, but the student that was now a junior in high school said, what happens with diet? Does that have a play? Oh. Now we're talking about a significant, and I said, in your particular case, you're right. You could most definitely make a difference if you start now. For us that are 60 or 80, that's not going to. So it's going to teach, I think, us a few things about what they're looking at and what they're looking at through their lives. Most of the kids in there, the president saw her grandfather pass. So it affected her enough so that she has
chosen. She says, I'm going to do this. So, I mean, I know you've done a couple of other things at more of a, I mean, it has potential to interact at the state level or the national level. And the one that comes to mind is, this comes, I sure, Ed, from some of your writing capacity, is the guns in the home. And, being able to help the NRA come up with something they can provide to people. Mm-hmm. And again, this is one of those things where people need practical things. The faith community booklet that you all did, helping faith communities figure out how are we going to support people instead of say, oh, I don't know that she should be at services,
Yeah.
She's
put
just
them in that quiet room.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the work that you're doing, these pieces that you're adding to the, the puzzle, to the picture, create that wholeness that we're looking for lives for people living with dementia, is this whole picture of life, not just the medical or the health thing or the behavioral stuff, but all this other stuff that if we did it better, we wouldn't have as many of these incidents that create such terror in the hearts of others, because, it doesn't have to be awful, but boy, we sure can make it that way.
Or just assume that it has to be this way.
It has to be that way.
This is what's going to happen. No.
So when is she going to get violent, or when is he going to hurt people?
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
Well,
when we begin to notice kind of a problem or a category of problems, we'll try to create a tool, usually a publication that will address it. And when Debbie was doing the counseling, I mean, she would get a phone call here at home with something like, my husband has got the loaded Army 45 and he's following the cat around the living room with the laser sight.
Yep.
Right. Can you come over?
Yeah. Can you
right come
now?
over?
Oh, yeah, right now.
Does he need help with his aim, or were you thinking of something else?
And we're not gun people. We're not gun experts.
No.
But we began to study this issue.
Yeah.
And the fact is, guns aren't like cars. We don't trade them in when we want one. We just get another one. And we discovered statistics that indicate that the bigger and bigger and bigger collections belong to the older population. So we have this collision between dementia and firearms that is just not good for anybody. And because we weren't experts, we went out and found some experts. And on that booklet we made, I just worked as editor and brought attorney, a gun shop owner, a retired deputy, a
gun trust
attorney, a target shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I brought these people all together to write chapters, and I think as you said, the NRA got involved. I think that approach created enough credibility that the NRA named it as an editor's choice for its magazine. If I'd written that myself, that never would have happened. No. But we try to bring in other experts to build not only the accuracy, but the credibility of these publications.
We also, when you're talking about some of these things, another thing that a lot of us have to understand is we're talking about guns and maybe the possibility of taking them away. But we also have to understand about substitution, not just keep subtracting things from these folks. But I'll give you, just to actually, I've had a communication with a person with dementia, and we talk about firearms, but some people love their farm equipment and electric power tools just as much.
Or the kitchen stove for women. It's in the mixer. I mean, don't tell me what I can't do in the kitchen, but
yeah.
So we're trying to learn from from the person living with dementia, what is the fear, what is the concern. And now what ended up happening with this gentleman was I said, do you have some sons? He said, of course I do. I said, were you leaving them to your sons or something else? And he said, well, of course I'm going to leave all this to my son. I said, well, how about, would you think about maybe showing them how to use them now properly while you can? And it ended up that he ended up doing something like that, not taking them away from him, but gifting them away, and he was empowered to show them.
Yeah. So that's, and you intervene in a way and in a time that it's not this fear factor, because we haven't gotten quite to that place if we play this right, versus I think people are trying to come in my house. That's not the time to try to take a firearm away, but it is a time to help recognize, wow, we may, and again, you and I both know all too often that person hasn't even been identified as having a dementia because they have Lewy body. And it's not even known that that's what's going on. And so, they could be a prime candidate for being considered somebody who's armed and dangerous. And what it really is their brain is changing on them. And we've got to figure out how we're going to do something that's supportive in a way that's going to be helpful.
And there's actually a reason why they may be afraid or more paranoid or more hyper alert. There may be a reason why that is, but we can't look at the person as, why are you doing this? Well, that's kind of a silly question, but what's bringing you to this?
Yeah.
What's bringing us to this point? So let's see if we can support you as we go here that maybe we'll never get to here. The congregation books that you mentioned too, and some of the other things that we've done, we really want to empower our community. We'll be there to support them, but we want to empower our community to use the resources that they have. And our congregations have so many of what you describe in every workshop that I've seen with you is the rhythm. Rhythm on the right. Rhythm is staying, rhythm right is going to be retained. And that's the most powerful thing that most of our churches have. Any congregation of any kind, and to empower them to keep their membership up. As you said, we are in our 8 counties surrounding, we're as low as double over our state average over 65, as well as almost 65% over 65.
Yeah, it's not just Citrus County. Our whole West Florida region is has a very
It's an
aged
aged
demographic.
group. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
So empowering the people around us, not so that we're telling them what to do, but they're coming to us and saying, what should we do? Huh? Well, let's see how we can support you. You know, when you mentioned professionals like our nurses that are now retiring, the baby boomers are getting to the point where some are retiring, and we're not training to the disease of our time, which is going to be here for the most of the next career.
Yep.
It's really sad. We've talked, I mean, we have watched you for only a quarter of your time in this business, but we have watched this tsunami develop.
Yep.
And now we've watched it go right by us. And now we're
in it.
chasing it.
We're
Yeah.
there. I mean,
We're
we are.
chasing the tsunami.
Now we're here.
Right.
Nobody listened for way too long, and now we're trying to play catch up.
Mhm.
So,
And we don't know what to do.
and we aren't.
Yeah.
People still don't know what to do. I mean, and
Yeah.
I hear, it's so depressing. I know it's like we love what we do, but it's so depressing to hear. I wish I'd known that. It's like, I wish you had too, because I've been doing this a long time. So I wish you
Right.
had, because then you wouldn't be where
Yeah.
you are, feeling so miserable, and neither would your person. And
Yeah.
we got to get better at this. It's just not okay.
It's not okay anymore.
So you guys have done this extra step, and we got to wrap it up real soon here,
Okay.
I know. But I do want to share that you guys have done something, and it's the portraits and the people that we know who are have lived with dementia, and they lived life with dementia at the end of their life. But boy, it doesn't define them, but it did change how they lived, and that people
Yes.
needed to figure it out. So, and unfortunately not always. And so I think that's really, you've done this portrait gallery, and I'm hoping that you guys have some pictures that you would be willing to share when we post this.
Absolutely.
So folks can get a chance to see some of your things. Because you did such a nice job of having people look at famous people and go, oh, her? Oh, wow. Because I think that work that you do, and I've got a feeling it's from Ed. Ed went and
let's go back to that in the beginning when I said we started confronting all of these myths and misconceptions. And one thing we wanted people to understand, it's not hereditary to the extent that it just runs in families.
Right.
It's not racial. It's, that, and we said, we got to get across the message that this disease respects no boundaries at all.
None.
Rich, poor, whatever race,
brilliant,
men, women, smart, dumb. Dementia affects everyone. Well, I guess we don't have any dumb people, because we created this exhibit that we call the Famous Americans Dementia Education Photo Exhibit, and it contains artists, authors, athletes, politicians,
actors,
musicians.
artists.
The purpose of this was not to celebrate, not to focus on celebrities, but by collecting portraits of famous people, we could create the lesson that it affects everyone. And this has almost become something out of our control. We now have 81 portraits, and we may have to build another garage to put more of them in, because it isn't going to end.
So there's only been set up twice, and the first time was at Alzheimer's Month in November, which was nationally designated, and it was in our state capital, all 80 photos. It was exciting for us. It might not have been the best time, but it doesn't matter. This disease, you have to affect one person at a time. And if one person looked and said, I didn't know that, or how do I, it's starting a conversation to not hide your person, because that's going to happen naturally with the disease. Let's not perpetuate that. Keep them social. Bring them up. make them understand, allow them to be part of your life, because it is a new life now. You just have to do things differently. So we're really pleased with some of the reactions that we get. We're pleased with the education that we'll be able to get out to folks. We think that because of the PAC training that we have, it is very viable for folks to be able to take these practices home and do them now. Apply them now.
Let me add just one thing about the exhibit that I think is useful learning, is that when we get this set up and every one of them has a little bio on it, and people begin to learn that there are people who have it from traumatic brain injury, Lewy body, aphasia, on, and they begin to learn it's not just Alzheimer's. This is a syndrome that affects so many people for different reasons.
Yeah.
And when you tell them, and I know I've seen some of the looks on people when you say there's right to date 120.
Mm-hmm.
It's and something that was something that was very profound in one of our conferences was a gentleman that we had somebody from research that was talking. And as you know, that when person amygdalas gets kind of aroused, they lose some of their verbal skills.
Mm-hmm.
But make the long story short, I had to use my PEC skills to bring him aside. When we calmed him down, he knew he had dementia, and he was pleading for that research company to fix it. Pretty huge. And that's where you just expressed, I feel depressed. It's depressed beyond, a whole lot of boundaries, that this man finally calmed down enough to say, I'm scared, and why don't they fix it?
Yeah. And, and again, how somebody delivers a message, unfortunately, so often masks the message. And so people don't hear the message because all they see is the behavior. But it's like, I'm behaving this way because I have a message to deliver, and I'm not very good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And their message is valid.
Mm-hmm. Their
message is so transparently real. That it's, I think when we have our interactions with those folks living with a form of dementia, we may feel, as you just expressed, and I may feel overwhelmed at sometimes, but they're the reason.
Yep.
They're the reason, because there's people that don't have a voice for them. And I feel that we can do that for them.
We are the Loraxes, and we speak for the trees. My favorite Dr. Seuss book, because that's, you got to recognize, wow, this is just another tree. And it's like, no, it's not just another tree. It's a unique and really special tree. So I want to say thank you. Thanks for all you've done and all you continue to do in the world. Thank you for your willingness to have the courage to say, yeah, I have a job, but it's not the right job for me. And for the ability to go, I don't need to be the expert, but I can gather experts together, and we can start to make a difference by being willing to ask the hard questions, to be willing to say, is that working? By being willing to say, let me tell you a story. And doing that for, 7 years. Let me tell you a story. And then having the ability to tell a story well enough that you stay in the paper for 7 years, once a month. So, I think together we are shifting. We haven't changed the culture yet, but we are working hard, all of us who care, to get somebody to really go, I don't want to do this in a way that makes you super distressed with me, but I do got to get you a little uncomfortable. So you'll finally get off that space that you're on and recognize that's not really working. Let's talk about what might. But you got to sort of look with me and go, is that working? And the answer is no, it's not. All right.
Mhm.
Well, let's try something different then. Let's agree to try something different because that's not working. Yeah.
And when we started shifting and really looking at the people that we're caring for, then they became empowered when they become questioned. They become very empowered and say, wait, I don't think I want to do this. I might want to try this. That's where you know that you've probably made some sort of an impact on that person. So we know that PAC has made a big impact on us and what we do, and it is what we believe in. So,
And you've made a big impact on what you do. So thank you to both of you for all you've chosen to do. And thanks for having the courage to do it, because it's not an easy job sometimes, but thanks for doing it. So, all right, everybody, take care with care, and maybe you'll find that courage to say something to somebody and see what can happen. Hi, I'm Tifa Snow, and you just found our YouTube channel and watched one of our videos. I'm the owner and founder of Positive Approach to Care. Thanks for watching. And if you liked, if you have a comment about, or you would, please share it with people you know. Oh, and if you haven't yet done it, consider subscribing. We'll let you know when the next new video comes out. And you might want to visit our website, www.tipasnow.com, where you'll find other resources as well. See you there.